the study and knowledge of Oromo history. And the Oromo history suggests there has been a diversification, a very clever diversification of every moment of Oromo history. The Oromo have been moved, shipped, attacked, left in peace at times, had different governments coming upon them. But the Oromo have managed to survive and change, assuming their history. So therefore, for the people in Oromia, one cannot go into human rights or justice without using indigenous institutions, but with a pinch of salt, saying, yes, we have institutions which were democratic. Absolutely, yes. We are willing to learn from your institution in globalization, but at the same time, we have a difference. People who know their history cannot be convinced of oppressive ideas. They cannot convince them to think differently. So therefore, in that first paradigm, the very strong Oromo Study Association, the very strong scholarships for young Oromo to study their history, not for the sake of romanticizing the past. Sometimes that happens, particularly in the US. But the very clear sense of who we are, and therefore we move from the old without leaving the old. We still respect our elders. At times we tend to think we don't. Number two, the Gala system. Even if one of you in this room does not know anything about the Gala system, I'm not suggesting that one should study Gala on Saturday afternoon, have workshops on Gala, but to sum the Gala system as a system of civilization that cannot be left behind. If one day, and there will be, there is an independent Oromia, parts of the Gala system will be very useful. The Council of Elders, the possibility of the instruction, the prayers at the beginning and the end, very important. So modernity, postmodernity, and globalization have to be assumed as colonialism. And so therefore we are still fighting colonialism. We have our own ideas, others have, we must respect them. But we cannot assume that only others will teach us. Number three, a reflection on the nation state. What is the relation of the nation state today? Some scholars suggest the nation state has died. It doesn't exist. I am one of them. Nation states don't function any longer. Not only in the Horn and in East Africa, but everywhere else there seems to be a problem with the nation state. It's a federal system, the possibility, as the Ethiopians have put it. But whatever it is, the nation state has to be discussed, because the nation state will not go away very soon. So Gala comes into a nation state. The reflection into independence of Oromia, for example, needs to have the reflection. How do we dream a nation state in which diversity is respected, knowing against all odds that no nation state today is working well, but that the non-existence of political or religious system is not the answer. Number four, there are only five. Number four, what is the role of violence and force in a 21st century paradigm? This is a very honest person. This is a very honest comment from a person who has been both. When I was very young, yes, I was part of the Chilean revolutionary movement, yes, with a gun. Later I became a scholar and a thinker of that movement. Instead of saying, no, you cannot do that, a deep reflection is needed, a peaceful reflection. There are moments when violent movements and movements of force are needed. There will be no independent African nation if there will not have been freedom fighters. The freedom fighters of Kenya, Uganda, and other African countries today would be terrorists. Yes, they were, including Mandela. Mandela was the person who put bomb. So, this is something that cannot be ignored. It is easier in scholarship to say, yes, we ignore this point, and we're all very peacefully together. This needs to be discussed at one point or another. So therefore, what is the role of the Oromo Liberation Front as fourth paradigm within this? Is something that needs to be discussed. I know that this is a very difficult topic. I know it is a very heated topic, but it won't go away. I am a believer that different models, as I said with Legesse and Baxter, can function together. So there are moments in which one needs to decide if protest and violence is needed or not, other moments in which one say never, and in other moments one say scholarship and the lobbying is the only answer. This is the cleverness of change. Number 5 and final, the study of the Oromo diaspora. This strikes me among all the different people who have gone out of their lands that there is very little scholarship on the Oromo diaspora. What are the ways in which Oromo history, Oromo society, Oromo political institutions, and the sense of independence have been lived, not implemented, lived within Oromo families in the United States, in Canada, in Europe? And in which way our children and grandchildren think of that independence? Which brings me to a very big question, which probably, thank God I'm not the speaker after this, but it's simply the question, do the Oromo still believe in independence? This is a question that every group that has been sent into exile need to ask themselves at one point or another. Do we really believe that Oromia one day could be independent? I give you the example of some of the work I've been doing on Tibet. Tibet had a strive for full independence until then in the late 1980s it started shifting into autonomy, liberty, and support as a